I think one of the hardest things to do right now is to remain neutral in your perspective. They call that non-duality, right? Because the minute you even say that you actually sit on a fence and you can see both sides, most people will think that you're bypassing or you're uninformed, right? Because you haven't been able to make a decision, and they're going to plead their case on why you need to be on their side, right? Because it's easy to trigger people's egos or when they're in a bit of a survival fight or flight kind of mode. And when there's talks of war and you know um, all the just all the things that are happening on the planet, where people's survival, their jobs, their taxes, their a lot of different systems are being threatened right now, right? So they're feeling it in different ways. So where they're being triggered by those current world events, right? They're gonna express it, and they're right from their point of attraction. And I said it's like we've all been dropped onto these different vibrational coordinates. It's kind of like that battleship game, right? Where you just don't know where everyone's pegs at, right? Um, and certain things, you call out a certain number and it's going to hit different people, right? At the different, and we overlap, right? We have, I might have these 5 pegs over here would overlap with somebody else's, a couple of their pegs or whatever. That's the kind of thing is we have they call it the common field, but it's the consensus reality. It's those things that we are in a vibrational chord where things in the world where we've looked and we said, oh yeah, that's happening, or oh my gosh, look what they're doing over here, whether it's to the water, to the taxes, to the immigrants, to education, whatever it is that you've seen in the world. And because not every story is going to show up for every person in the same way. And in fact, for some people, if they don't have those codes of distortion in them, they're going to be oblivious to it. It doesn't mean that they're not watching the news. It's just that story is likely not going to come across their feed, right? I've noticed that we're not all getting our version of the story. It's actually not everyone's getting the story. So and people go, well, that's AI, and we don't know that there's people manipulating your algorithms and this and that, and that's still playing small. That's not allowing yourself to be this creator being who's got this really strong point of attraction. And every time I've given permission for something in the outer world to be real by saying, oh my God, they're doing this now, right? If I read that story and I didn't question its validity because it was, let's say, an expert in that field, I've given power to experts in the field because I'm an educated person, or they make more money than me, or they've been right all these other times, that sort of thing. Who knows what my permissions were, but vibrationally you've allowed them and their script, right? Because that's the thing is their intention with that story is sharing an experience or something that they've studied, but it's still the spin on the ions that they've interacted with and they've interpreted in that way. And then the further they go out on their branch with an idea in their mind, they're a point of creation. So they're just going to find more evidence along that branch to support a theory. Sometimes they can be in their heart and have no prescripted ions, or expected ions, and they're just walking along, la la la, and something beautiful and unexpected shows up, right? Because that happens as well. Or they've got enough people on their team that have different thoughts, and so what comes up is kind of a surprise for all of them, because there's been energy is going to take the path of least resistance. So it's going to look at all those people involved and go, okay, so how is this going to check everyone's boxes so they all get an experience, from all the currency that they're all putting it together. So there's a sum of the parts playing out, right? There's an expression of all the energetic currencies. So I don't have to take on that story, but if I don't stop and read it and go, oh, that's interesting, I see you, but I'm not necessarily going to play with that in my reality, right? So the practice is to look at it, to look at the script, at the story, and what that person was doing, and maybe where they've been playing for the last little while. Or you can kind of zoom out and go, oh, okay, and who does that serve? Is there a solution being sold here through this story, right? Could the people that funded these studies have an agenda? And the more you zoom out, or does that person get to be more of an expert in their field because they've discovered that thing, right? So there's ego attached to some of it. Or was this a level of limitation that humanity has chosen to play through, right? It's kind of like if you see it as a video game, or if you're a golfer, it's a sandbar, right? You put it to make the game a little harder to get to that perfect world. You got to kind of go around and navigate these things, right? So it's, but when you do it from that state, you're not invested in it. You don't need that story to be right or wrong. You're non-polarized. Um, you're at 0 point with it because you've got nothing invested either way, right? But when you start taking it on, and that's the thing is, most of us, until we get to a level of our consciousness where we're zoomed out and we're in that, I call it the drone perspective, and you start seeing patterns and themes and the bigger stories here, and the scripts. But you are in your creator consciousness where you get to choose again, and you can collapse the charges within you. So no longer are you feeling, sick to your stomach, or anxious about any of it, or disempowered, or you don't have hope for the future, that sort of thing, right? So those sorts of things all add up. So we have to start calling them all back. All those stories that, it's like if you got all these spinning balls around you and you're a juggler, right? And that's kind of what we are. But they're also strings to your box car with the spheres, right? Spinning. That's the thing. You can't change the sphere of influence for other people because they've got their own scripts, and we have to trust their process and however that's going to play out for them, right? Because the minute we make their process wrong, or we're in judgment that we have to enlighten them around this, now we're in our ego, right? And just trying to defend our choice and that sort of thing. So that's a gray area in itself. But what you have to do is collapse the cord to your box car, right? Those cords of attachments that, quantum entanglement, maybe it's the string theory, who knows what those cords are, but there's a vibrational pattern in me that was being met there. And I'm going to try to bring it back into a 0 point. So it's not active. So I'm going to collapse the currency and redirect it into more of an empowered state for me. So I'm going to see the story, and I see what it was about. I can see the characters, the benefits, because you have to go, how does this serve us, right? And sometimes it's just serving your growth. Sometimes it's just serving do I want that? No. And you have to do a healthier border, right? You have to, take back your sphere of influence and go, no, 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 I'm stronger than that. I just see you. That's it. But you're not informing me, right? You're not informing my ions to behave in the way you've said that humanity around this thing has to behave. I'm kind of keeping the conversations loose enough so it can apply to several different things. That's why I'm hoping that lands for you. So, let's say fluoride in water as an example. There's arguments for and arguments against, right? And when you can start seeing them for and against, how did this serve us? Why did we choose this? And now what can we do, right? You can call it back into your 0 point where it no longer has any power over you, right? So the whole, shutting down of the third eye through the fluoride, that kind of thing. No, you can turn on your third eye without the fluoride, right? That's just something that you've given outside of you more permission to affect your biology. But this creator being that you are has its own chemistry factory, and that fluoride is just it's a story of limitation, a story of disempowerment, that your consciousness said, yeah, okay, I'll take that on as part of the game. I'll put that sandbar there, right? I'll put, a few more landmines in the game of my life, right? And so that my hero has more hurdles and more things to overcome on my journey, right? So you look at them all and you see those stories, and you don't have to be in a head in the sand, obnoxious, not obnoxious, ignorant kind of, it saying it has no power over me. La 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 la, I've got this. What you can do though is you can say, I see what we've created over there, and I respect that that's in the field, but I'm going to call that energy back in me and start putting it more towards this pathway of, I can bring that, my water, my divine water within me back into its divine state through love, right? Through compassion, through whatever that was about, through anybody who's been affected by that sort of thing. Because compassion is a really nice way to heal all the people that got affected in a nice, clean way, without going into pity or sympathy or judgment, or thinking you need to champion something, that sort of thing, right? Because you do have to get to the point where you trust their process. Because if you see them as their own point of light, but you're not trusting their process and where they're at on their journey, it's like you've put them in darkness. And the quantum entangled piece of that darkness is also represented in you, because there's nothing in the outer world that's not represented in you. You've now put that in darkness within yourself, right? So whatever you damns you back, right? So judge not lest ye be judged, right? So that quantum entangled piece, you really do have to go back into, we've got this. I trust you and me. Even the people doing the story of the fluoride, in the water being good for you, and you've not bought in, right? And because you think it's bad or whatever, they're both serving something, right? Even if you don't see it, right? Even if it's just the builders of the sandbar, that sort of thing, right? The sand in the oyster, right? And creating the pearl, right? So that's the thing. So so you have to practice that state within yourself. So when things start showing up in the outer world, and this is where it gets really tricky, because I'm seeing a lot of stories that are, gosh, it's so easy to go into judgment around. It's so easy to pick a side, pick a country, pick a regime, pick a political party, and then make the opposite bad, right? But what you have to know, if you can play in the theme in your drone perspective, some people are championing divine feminine wounds, some people are championing divine masculine wounds, right? Some people are being emotionally manipulated, some people are being too logical. Some people are looking at policy, some people are, maybe they have something to gain from certain political regimes or perspectives or parties or something, and so they're looking at through a distorted lens in a service to self kind of perspective. It's very, very nuanced, right? But again, you don't want to put anybody in darkness. So we are not at this time in our consciousness, in our expansion, and our stepping more into the light, into that wholeness, into unity. We're being asked to trust in everybody where they're at. It's kind of like, have you ever seen that? There's a beautiful, and I just saw it, I think on Robert Edward Grant's Instagram. He had a whole bunch of metronomes. They were all individual ones, and it wasn't his study. Somebody else had done it, but they started the metronomes all at different times. Let's say there was 50 of them, and they all got started. And so they're all going off, and they're all swinging randomly, right? But the base, the platform that they were on, was a moving platform. And so they were all individually going, but because of that moving platform, they quickly harmonized. And next thing you know, all the metronomes are doing this. Well, that's the collective consciousness, right? We are individual, but when we can hold that bigger divine, you call it the river of life, the antakarana. It's your flow state. When you can trust it, you literally, you sync up with the currency of the flow of it. And now every person individually is having an experience, but it's an alignment, right? It's harmonized. It doesn't mean that those metronomes all become one metronome. It doesn't mean that they don't get to be individual, right? I think there's a lot of people thinking that they're going to become sheep if they fall in line. But you don't have to fall in line in a way that you lose your identity piece, right? You still feel your emotion. You still have your core integrity. What's showing up for you as distortions. Trust that if it's showing up for somebody else in its opposite, it just means that's the flavor of your distortion is different than the flavor of theirs, right? But you're both in a distortion, right? That's what you can trust. And when you can get back to your 0 point into your non-duality, you're both swinging in the metronome. You're both individual people having an experience, but now you're not fighting each other, right? Now the energy is not a whole bunch of chaotic things. We actually, at our core, everybody wants to be loved, right? And they want peace, harmony. We're no different at our core. It's just the wounding has given us different vibrational perspectives, right? So how you come around the story, it's kind of like I always say, if I dropped a sculpture in the middle of a round table and there were 12 seats at the round table, and it's a beautiful dimensional sculpture, let's say it's the thinker, right? And he's sitting there. Well, he's only facing in one direction. So the people on the other side, they're going to get the butt end of him, right? So if you get everybody to share what they're seeing, right? No one person around that table is right. No one person had the right perspective. The person at the front who saw the face might think they've got the best perspective on the thing because they're seeing maybe the most important bits, right? But they're not seeing the whole picture. And what you need everybody at the table. You need all their vibrational coordinates to add up so we can get a complete picture of what is actually in the middle. So everyone is contributing to the database wherever they are. That's the part of the process we have to trust. Their piece of the tapestry, their thread of it, their piece of the puzzle, whatever that is. There's lots of language for it. Their song to sing, their note in the chorus, right? It has to be played out in the exact way it is. We can, if they ask us a question about our thoughts, and we can go back and forth and communicate with people, maybe share something that helps them flesh out their, maybe both sides of their seat, suddenly they have a better understanding on it. But I can't bring somebody from one side of the table totally over to my side easily. The only way to do that is if both sides are standing in the middle. If both sides have decided to meet and give up their perspectives and are willing to be wrong. That's the only way. Because when they're both sitting at their seats, all they're doing, there's something called a confirmation bias. It's where you constantly are gathering evidence to support where you're at. And, I think they call it the reticulating activator system as well. It's like, you buy a yellow car and you see a yellow car everywhere. Suddenly you go, oh, I didn't know there was that many yellow cars, because they seemed rare before maybe. And you were so excited about your yellow car. And that's not exactly how it works, but it is, you are looking for evidence of something because you've been tuned on to it, right? I do this at Heart Rocks. I find them everywhere. And I swear I go to the same beaches all the time. And there's more and more and more and more. Because I know I'm co-creating with Gaia now, right? Did those rocks exist before I made that decision to go to the beach? I don't know. And I'm okay with not knowing. I'm okay if she's making them up, is she making them for me that day? I don't know. Maybe my tuner is like, and every day I go, I'm on a different frequency of the beach. So I don't know if that makes sense. If I'm the tuner, right? So my eyes are dialing in to different rocks at different times. vibrationally, so that I get to see those different rocks that I didn't see before. I mean, who knows? Who knows what that is? Does everything exist all at once right now? I don't know. We know there's inner earth kingdoms. We know there's lots of cosmic and galactic beings out there. We know there's, um, they talk about the Bigfoot or Sasquatch as a higher dimension of consciousness. And that's why people that are in the forest and that have kind of tuned into the forest, every once in a while they come across one, because maybe they've dropped the bandwidth of the collective of the old, 3D or whatever reality we've been in, and they've tuned into it and got a glimpse or something, that, right? It's the tuner thing. So, yeah, does it all exist all at once? I don't know. I know we're creating as we go, right? So, it is, I'm not necessarily expecting new every time though, but I'm just available, right? So it's showing up that way. But yeah, so I'm just getting back to in regards to people out there with the stories. And this has been a really tricky one for me because I have somebody, my partner, my husband in my life, who is very much of the 3D evidence world. And I know he supports me because I can't go as deep as I go into the spiritual world, into consciousness. I shouldn't say I can't. That's another limitation on myself. Let me change that. He has assisted me in going where I go, as deep as I go out on that branch. He's doing the law of correspondence for me, the equal and opposite, so that I don't tip too far, so that I don't go into, crazy town, right? Because let's face it, there's a lot of people that go down these deep paths of ideas that nobody's been before, and they do look crazy, right? So having one foot in a household in the world where I'm expected to show up and do the very 3D things and have very 3D conversations, it does serve me, because I do bring, and I've talked about this before, where it's kind of like I've been weaving back and forth, back and forth. And every time he triggers me and back into my older personality, let's say where I've had to, where he's gaslit me on something. There's something I'll have an opinion. Let's say something happened in the world, and I weigh in from my perspective on it, and I'm not seeing it in the way he does, because he's very, the media presents something to him, and that's the way it is for him. It's exactly as the media presents. And I'm like, oh, okay, and the media's batting 1,000, are they? Like, are you kidding me? Anyways, but I question, and that's the thing. I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying the media is all about hidden agendas and lies and manipulation, because everything's yin yang, right? There's light and dark, dark and light, right? So, and if I can be balanced enough in me where I don't put the media on a pedestal, but I also not damning them, right? So I have to hold a balanced state where they are both, right? So spirituality has both, right? Let's face it. I mean, there are some religions out there that seem quite dark, right? So okay, so I'm not in a fantasy about anything. I'm not hating anything. I'm not trying to delude myself into anything. But what I do is I check in with Deborah once in a while. How did that story make me feel? And if I felt something around not being safe, or something that it feels disempowering, or that feels like there's a hidden agenda there that doesn't have my best interest, I'll try to circle it around. And, I'll give an example. The whole WEF, the World Economic Forum, the whole you'll own nothing and be happy. I didn't go too down that rabbit hole. I saw the rabbit hole. And as soon as I heard Carney and his wife even recently said, about the New World Order, saying those words, it triggered something in me where I went, oh, okay, wait a minute here. That New World Order, human new world order. Whoa, wait a minute. Humans aren't writing the new world for me. I'm not, you don't have my script, right? And it's funny, I'm even feeling heat as I'm talking about this. So even sharing this is interesting because I'm my whole idea in sharing all these things is to assist us, those of us that could dream in the new world, how to do it. So talking about this generated some heat in me. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, boy, because there's still some level of wait a minute, you're not the script writer for me. I'm in a place, I'm in my higher self consciousness, my that galactic family of light, the team, the Christed grid, the angelics, the all of our those beautiful, divine, empowered, enlightened states of consciousness that are coming in are assisting us, and I'm embodying more and more of it. I'm activating my light body, or your soul emergence, right? And I'm coming into that state where I know this point of light, the point of attraction that I'm creating in my new script. I'm a free and sovereign being at that place, right? And I didn't come in here to serve anybody. I get to choose how I want to show up in the world. I'm getting to choose what I want to create, how I heal myself, right? Whether I do it with others, whether I do it on my own. How do I want to live? Do I want to live in a community where we work in a cooperation together, where we have markets and we share our creations, or what sort of a trade system? I know that I'm really happy with a lot of the things we've created. I just don't want to see the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I want to bring things back into that. But I'm not a socialist in a way where I want to punish the people that are really working their ass off right now and bringing crazy new things to the world. And they, by saying you're being punished and you're going to be extra taxed over here because we've got to help these people over here. So I'm not, it's not, there's no one system right now that is working for everybody. We have to take the best of different systems and piece them together. And so that there's a merit system, and there's an energy currency, right? The light that you hold is your currency, right? If you're not willing to even do some of your shadow work, and you're just going to sit and be depressed and not even allow help to come to you, that sort of thing, you're probably going to end up experiencing less than somebody over here who's a go-getter and who's sharing their energetic currency in different ways, right? Through buying more, they have more buying power, through more maybe they're the leader, the business, owners, maybe they're inventors, or so they're getting more ideas come to them because the currency, they have more dreams that are being active in the field and more areas for the energy to come and touch down through. Because you have to have it's like the dress rehearsal, new points of attraction for the currency to come in and go through. Where these people over here, if they're unwilling to take any steps to move forward. And there are some people, let's just face it, there are some people that are just going to drink themselves to death, or just want to sit and do drugs, and or cry that they're a victim all the time. I can't do this, and maybe they've got a body that doesn't work very well, but they maybe could work on a computer, but they're playing the victim card because they're unhappy. And again, I'm throwing out these stories. I have crazy compassion for anybody whose soul chose to come in and in a position where they feel they don't have any movement, where they feel that they have no help and no support and no love, and they're feeling really alone in the world. And that's extreme separation, right? So again, I have to trust their process, because maybe while those of us are trying to, bring in more light, well, not maybe, we know that. We know they're still holding the anchor, right? Stabilizing the field for some of us to create the new world. So, in my new reality, I think, at some point we're going to be able to throw lifelines down and they're going to be able to come up and be in the new world. So let's just hold them in there. I trust your process, and I'm just going to send you compassion, and that's all you can do, right? Because again, you can't join people where they're at, because shadow can't lift shadow, right? And so when I think about that whole new world order thing, my heart goes into fear. As I said, I just, luckily that it was only hot for a minute or maybe 30 seconds there, but it was interesting enough. So it flashed enough to show me it used to be more. So thankfully, what I'm doing is I'm peeling the layers of the onion within Deborah. What about that story that made me go there? What is it I fear? And I know I fear that I'm not a strong enough script writer for the reality that I'm choosing to overpower their reality. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. That my belief in my creator ability to create my script, it's my faith in my in my creations. Do I have enough faith in my creations that script that I'm working on writing right now is going to be more dominant than this script? Because again, we have a collective and a consensus grid, right? And field that we're all playing, we're all connected into. And the thing is, what you fear gets currency. Even though I'm creating over here, there was still some currency going in a fearful way towards this story. I felt it and I saw it. Oh, that's really interesting. So I got to see, okay, now it's coming. Oh, we're collapsing it. Oh, this is really fun. So if any of you feel into that, the disempowering part of that script, I think that's what we're collapsing here. Okay. We know that those of us that are writing we're map making, we're the systems coders. We are bringing in these new energetic timelines, the new pathways for the new allowances, the new systems that are going to start taking shape. They need our currency, the new points of attraction, but we have to do it by letting go of any story that's still getting any currency from us. We have to go into zero around our fear. We have to come back to neutrality, totally collapse that, and just go, I see you. I see you. Wow. Whew. Okay. We just see it as again, head of the snake story. And we know that the dark always serves the light. We know that what if those systems that they are putting in place, and I use the word they lightly because it's just, again, head of the snakes, right? Of the energy. Every person that's being held there in those stories is agreed to play those characters for all of us because we have scripted them in there for eons, right? And so all the themes are coming up and they're playing out in this one dominant story. And I think that's maybe the last dominant story. Well, that's a really interesting one, of the power over other structure. Because let's face it, it's already dying out. We've got, the new earth is here. Oh, that's really interesting. The new earth is here. These are just the echoes of those stories. But how they serve is they are creating the pathways that when we can send light into those pathways, wow, that's the biggest shadow work. Bringing light into the dark. That's really big. So do that within yourself through this process, these codes that are coming in. Feel into what those stories feel like and why you fear them. And allow this light, because there's light codes coming in and they're going down into stories. Stories being held over here. They're going into the stories where those old systems, those old power of other structures, again, heads of the snakes were being held. And once the light goes there, the whole structure is dissolved. So even the heads of the snakes, those souls signed up to be there, to play that character, to say, hey, look over here. Can you bring me some light while I'm here? Oh my gosh, they're like Snape in Harry Potter. I wonder if the characters know, though. That's the thing, whether they, and it doesn't matter. Their soul knows that they chose those characters. So all those, the World Economic Forum, the global elites, that sort of thing, whether their personalities know or not, it doesn't really matter, does it? Their personalities, maybe their personalities have an inkling, because I don't think they're, I don't know. No, because you hear, again, and I don't want to go into the whole child trafficking and pedophilia and all that kind of stuff. And I just don't want to go into those stories. I'm not trying to spiritual bypass, because I know the timelines exist. I'm not denying them. Oh, I just had a pang at my heart. Oh, that's really interesting. Feel into this in your heart, you guys. There's something here. It's like a sword coming out of the heart. Oh, that's so interesting. Wow. Okay. We have to staunch the flow of this sword being removed with love. Divine Mother, please fill us with love. May our hearts be overflowing with love and compassion for all those souls who signed up to play these difficult roles, victims and perpetrator roles on the planet at this time for humanity's ascension, so that all the old scripts, all the heads of the snakes can be seen. And may we redirect those energetic currencies into the new timeline of the new earth, where humanity is supported, humanity is at peace, where people feel free, loved, grateful, creative, healthy, divinely supported, where there is no separation by race, color, gender, age, jobs, belief systems. May we just find love in our hearts for every point of light, every expression of humanity, of the one expressing as the many. May we keep this flow to the new timelines open, so that any time we go into fear or see stories that want to feed the old power of other structures, may we pause and redirect and say, I see you, I see you, I choose again. May we have a code word, maybe, and each person picks their own word. Maybe it's just reset, or I choose again. And see that energy streaming forward and flowing into these new timelines with grace and ease, in divine order and divine timing. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, we're back at our neutrality, back at our 0 point. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I wondered why I'd be talking about that today. I think I saw something in the news that triggered me around the whole Iran stuff, that I just feel that there's a lot of confusion. And there's that part of me wanted to go to, why are some people championing what I saw as the bad guys, right? And again, I'm not going to say who has to be the bad guy in everyone's stories or their scripts, because we all have been dropped in. We all have different seats at the table. And my shadow work, where I'm bringing light into, is going to look different than others. Somebody else, if they're championing, let's say the bad guy, how does this serve us? Well, those branches also need light, right? It's kind of like, bringing light to the devil, right? And we know the devil is just de-veil. It's the veils. It's what has been hidden in the shadow, right? So, so what happens when somebody brings light there, right? So, confusion might just be our saving grace, right? So let other people's delusions and what they are sending light to bring us all back into 0 point. If somebody looks crazy delusional out there and they're championing something opposite of you, let's try thanking them for stabilizing the field so we can all find our way back into the middle. Because enlightenment isn't only, half of your sphere gets lit up, right? Enlightenment is where it's there's light in the dark and dark in the light, right? It's all, they both exist together, right? It's a binary coded system. You can't go from the binary code of our matrix or our universe, of our reality, to a single code, right? To one or the other. So, but it's a complementary thing when others, it's almost like there are twin flames in an energetic kind of a way. That's so strange. So in every story where there's somebody holding the opposite, they're, the self-reflection, it's like they're holding the opposite mirror for you to see what you've denied the light to within yourself. We know that. That's interesting. But some people, though, and this is what I noticed, is some people that are doing self-reflections, they're doing it because they are they're more in their masculine, so they are outer world dominant. They're in the evidence world, the tangible world. So their self-reflections, they're letting the outer world mirror things to them, to show them where they're at, to show them, people, they can, mirror things, or, state of the world, that sort of thing. And then you have other people that go in and do all their internal self-reflections, right? And they're looking at all their spirituality and their love and their peace and their, inner body kind of harmony, that sort of thing, right? What they've created in their physicality. And so there's a lot of inner reflections there. And the distortion is, if you're not giving 50% of that self-reflection to the outer world and 50% to the inner world, you're getting a distorted self-reflection even, right? So you have to practice coming into your 0 point even in your self-reflections, right? it's not all outer, it's not all inner. It's really it's got to be a dance of both, right? So, and I know it's really easy to give more value in certain areas because we're more coded to do that. But as the the conscious programmers that we are, right? And this is the programmer in me that's assisting us and activating. Every time I do these activations, I'm waking up your programmer. And that programmer within you, and it doesn't mean you have to do it with your hands moving. You do it through your breath. You can do it through your visualizations. Do it just through your intention, right? Just feeling the love into all these areas. These are how you're affecting your programming. But yeah, your balance between those systems within you has to be. You have to observe where you're giving too much value. And, spiritual people often have too much value. We pat ourselves on the back for being, awakened and, enlightened. And, we see things that others don't. And that's, the whole conspiracy thing. I always joke that's because, and why a lot of spiritual people tended to be a lot of the conspiracy theorists, because they were the shadow hunters, right? They were the ones that were willing to go into the shadows to bring them light, right? So those distortions have been there in different ways for eons, right? They just played out in this current timeline, in this reality, they played out in modern ways, right? So, yeah, I hope that makes sense, right? Like, the poisoning of the food or the poisoning of the water, it's showing up in a modern way, but in the old ways it was pretty obvious. Like, they would do it in really, um, we'll call it not so sneaky ways, right? They were literally trying to topple kings and with poisoning their food. That's why they had food tasters and stuff like that. But nowadays they're more modern, because the energy didn't die, right? It just transformed, right? So it's transformed into these modern day stories, which is why those heads of the snakes, I always say, they're just the gathering and momentum of all those stories that are coming up to be seen in this time in their modern way. But yeah, the a lot of light workers were the bigger were the shadow hunters. They went into the areas where most people weren't willing to go. Now, some of them were more shadow hunters in the outer world, because they were more dominant there, or some of them were shadow hunters in the inner world. And both were needed, right? And both are valuable. But you have to, now where we're being asked, right, to be balanced in the outer world and inner world, where you're and within yourself, and look at your self reflections both ways, right? And that's us practicing being in our neutrality. And that's you're harmonizing your hemispheres of your brain, your feminine, your masculine, your left and right hemispheres. That's the balance, right? That is the meeting of the two, right? And yeah, it's a when you can play there, you're a lot more spacious. You can be a lot more expanded, right? I always say you can be the drone. To get some lift off, to get some height, to see the bigger picture. You come into balance. So that's the thing. If that round table, and I always use the saying that there's 12 seats at the table, and that's kind of our higher council will say. There's a lot of language around what the 12 is, right, on the spiritual significance. But when you don't give any seat any more value at the table, and you understand that from the middle, in order to understand what's sitting in the middle, you need them all. So you yourself can stand in the middle. And it's an interesting thing. It's kind of being the spoke and the wheel, or sorry, the hub and the wheel, and all spokes are needed, right? But that's how you lift, right? And I think that's the 13th dimension, or the 13th chakra, right? That is, in the Divine Mother, number 13, right? So that feminine rising piece. it's got a lot to, so a lot of these things are metaphors, so we don't have to get too hung up on the exact interpretation, because everything that's been put on the field, every symbol, every culture had a different consciousness to interpret different things. So all those old signs and symbols and interpretations of, all those things, it was all just done at the consciousness at the time. So now the modern mystic in us can see the overview of it. Again, be the drone, right? And you're not going to touch down and grab one of those interpretations or one spoke on the wheel and say, no, this is the right interpretation of that one thing, right? No, the modern mystic is going to be that, that 13th position, right? Where we're using all 12, all those signs of the zodiac, right? And, we've collapsed the distortion, and we're in the database of all of them, right? So the wisdom of all of them can come through. So, yeah, so lots of codes. This is a big activation, you guys. So just breathe and allow and soften. Yeah. Yeah, just allow that heart expansion. Because whatever that was in the heart that got, that, it could have been, and I don't want to activate it, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But when you take out things like a sword in the heart, something that pierced you, those are betrayals, or, you know, where you end up creating a protection around something often, because you got so hurt, right? Or, yeah. So, or you felt alone, you felt unsupported, right? So there's a lot of that, going on for sure. But we know there's been a lot of lifetimes, especially for spiritual people, that, well, and if you zoom out far enough, everybody has spiritual aspects to them, because we've all been there. We've been everything. But some of those are a bit more, the things that are active in you are closer to home, are going to be the things that you resonate the most with, right? So, yeah, but those are some big themes, hopefully, that we just brought light into those. Wow. So we've got this. That's what I'm feeling here. This whole, my fear around that whole story, around the whole, WEF stuff, you know, that was, I think that was just a wound. That was just a wound that felt like something needed to be seen there, needed to be felt into. Yeah, I can just see it at some point. They echo out. This is the thing, is the momentum's been there. So even though we've done this, it's not as the, well, maybe I'm not going to say that there's not going to be a headline tomorrow show up that's going to have collapsed this. I don't know. But that's, I mean, let's face it, there's usually an unbraiding and unwinding from the field. There's usually things that have to come into play, right? And but if you've got this new story, this new timeline, this new earth script that you've already put energy towards, which is what we've done. We've put energy towards something in the field that we've redirected the currency to. Keep bringing your consciousness there and play there and thank it and dream in these, what might we have there? And, what sort of vehicles and how are they going to be powered? And, do we each own one, or is there more community thing? Or, because maybe we don't want the maintenance of our own vehicle. Maybe there's, going to be these big floating spaceships where, 10 of us can get on at a time and float somewhere. I mean, these are way out there ideas, but why, I'm just not going to limit myself, and let the energy get put into the field and be interpreted, where somebody else goes, yeah, I want my own spaceship, right? And then the energy goes, okay, so spaceships are coming up, right? So we both get our needs met. So that's how the universe, the energy works. It's going to take into account, again, consensus, right? What more people want. So we know vehicles, We still want to be moving. We want to get places. Do we want to get places faster? Yeah, wouldn't that be nice, right? You know, continent hopping quicker. Wouldn't that be cool, right? So, you know, whether it's teleportation, I don't know, that sort of thing. But I'm all for, you know, hopping around different places and seeing the world. So, okay. Oh, wow, that was a nice way to finish it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me on these, because you're a part of those codes being able to come in and landing. They don't, every person's consciousness is participating in it, because when we get together, it's like my higher self, and this is what I've signed up, I'm in service, right? I always ask for the highest of the highest of the highest to come through. And it doesn't matter what I do, I'm basically, I, because the light codes are what's coming through, that my hands are only moving for light, right? Shadow's not moving me, right? So that's my whole thing. So, but when I'm connecting to everybody who's listening, we are doing it as a group, right? I can sit in my own meditation and do these for myself, and that's how I can hold codes for other people when I'm in my conversations. You'd be downloading from me, because I do this twice a day. I'm morning and night. I'm meditating, but your consciousness is part of the group. What we were bringing through, where it's like you've got a vote. You're part of the consensus of the new earth, because what you've been choosing and what you give value to and your currency is also part of it. If it's a service to self thing, well, it's not. The light doesn't read that as a high, as a priority, right? The service to self pieces. But if that currency can come through and you've got 100 people wanting that same thing and it serves them all, yeah, okay, maybe it can come through in that way, and everyone gets their own individual service, right? Because, like I said, this is not all community stuff. You're going to get the energetic. You'll feel the support when everyone's supported the same way, right? Or the new inventions that support us, or the new maybe the new systems of governance that are maybe way more streamlined. Maybe it's all going to be, instead of a bunch of people yelling in Parliament, we're all going to be able to sit on our computers, and every person has a live vote right on our computers, right? And so every voice in Canada is heard in part of every big decision of where our money goes, right? I think that would be great, right? I have no problem with that. And then the computer distills it down, right? It reads all those things, and right away it can instantly give feedback. And then there's maybe new questions generated. Okay, so this is what was chosen. Now we've got all these new questions over here based on that. And then within that session, there's a solution created from all these dialed down, distilled questions that brought in all these different tiers of things, and that we've solved this issue. So there's, anyways, I can go on and on. I love talking about maybe how things could work in the future, but you're part of it, is what I'm saying. There's nothing that I'm doing when I'm coding where I'm not, because I know I'm connected to the database of the one, right? Of that universal field and how it comes through me. So there is something here for you. And so again, thank you. And I love you. Bye now.